In Hollywood movies, we're used to the boiling down of plot and character to nothing more than the simple good versus bad template, the hero versus the villain. The Western, of course, being the most obvious example, which in turn often oversimplifies history. But perhaps the binary coding of Hollywood movies into simple formulas isn't a tired old convention, but rather a reflection on our society itself, which gives us all few two options, and in turn giving us almost no chance of redemption. Clint Eastwood blurs the line between those unlawful codes of dusty towns to the tarmac streets of urban cities, and back again. Although the classic Western has declined over the years, its character hasn't. Individuals bound only by their own private code seem to be more common now than ever before. This time, found without cowboy hats, replacing tired horses for fast cars, and dirty ponchos for overalls and shiny satin jackets. These are the nocturnal males that chase obsessive goals only to be disrupted by the most unpredictable of all forces, love itself. In this episode, we'll be looking at the Michael Mann film, Heat, where we find an optimistic message hiding within its bleak narrative of desperate thieves and obsessive detectives, slowly suffocating in the City of Angels, the film that throws away the rulebook on good guys and bad guys, and could possibly be the most romantic movie I've ever seen. Heat is a film about the organised plan for a heist on one side, with the mess of private lives on the other. The film takes place in Los Angeles, a sprawling metropolis that famously lacks a centre. And despite being home to 3.8 million people, the film struggles to find anyone else on its desolate streets. Instead, we stay with two people on opposite ends of the law, but similarly just as obsessive and lonely as each other. The real focus of the film, however, is not the heists and downtown shootouts, but on its study and relationships, and how vital communication is instead replaced with silence in a city where survival seems unlikely. As we move through the apartments of previous Michael Mann films, we begin to notice a somewhat somber gaze at the material world. And it is this deep sense of melancholy, wrapped up in stylish upholstery, that gives us an irony of freedom. Large windows that only seem to magnify a sense of entrapment, with slick frames that appear more like prison bars. In this shot, we see only the shadowy back of Neil McCauley as he places his gun on an empty kitchen counter in the foreground and walks over to the window overlooking the ocean. Much like the Alex Colville painting Pacific, we reflect not only on the ambivalence of modern living, but see the desperate equation for the ticket out. And in true Michael Mann fashion, is bathed in deep blue, a colour that constantly surrounds us, but is impossible to reach out and touch. But don't let its bleak appearance fool you. This is very much a film about romance and love than it is about car chases and explosive action sequences. And this isn't to overlook the film's famous shootout scene either, because it is exactly this extreme reaction to a social breakdown that is its point. The tragic results of what happens when we replace words with bullets, and as such is filled with subtle details which tell us what it wants. Wherever there is intimacy, the camera too wants to get close. However, when talking about another risky heist, the camera stands away, reluctant to participate. Notice how in this scene, over sounds of waves crashing, we hear light strings just as Chris starts to talk about his wife.
For me, the sun rises and sets with her, man. Yeah.
Or when Hannah goes to meet an informant, only to see through his lies, he makes it clear the values that lay underneath his tough guy facade.
Listen, man, look.
Fall in love? Come on. Did you fall in love last night? You went off somewhere?
Listen.
Just tell me that. I'll settle for it. You know what I mean? I'll buy that.
And while Detective Hannah's life is a mess, with his third unsuccessful marriage, we see how unexpected romance forms in public places, with a little push from conversations about ambitions and dreams. Notice how after this scene, the camera floats high above Los Angeles, as Macaulay and Edie talk into the night. And with one simple focus pull on the couple, the lights below turn from rows of street lamps and traffic jams into twinkling romantic abstractions. These are the same lights that later reveal a socially impotent Hannah as a man who has lost the ability to console and comfort others, in a world where murder and violence seem easier concepts to grasp. Make no mistake about it, this is one of the greatest American films ever made. A film that manages, even through its minor characters, to critique a society that offers no second chances. How people deal with a loss of connection with simple over-medication, which as a result cuts us off from feeling anything at all. To make the point even clearer, the film's only villain has zero value for human life, completely devoid of emotion and unable to empathize with others. But perhaps the most overlooked aspect of the film is in its very title, heat. It's something we feel, and just like love, is difficult to define. But no matter how complex things can get, we all know exactly what it feels like when things go cold. It's an instinct, a primal feeling that goes straight to the gut. On the next episode, we'll be going into the isolation tanks deep underneath Harvard University and coming out the other end more confused than before in Ken Russell's Altered States.